Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
It's The In Show, Australia's only show dedicated to innovation from Adelaide, Australia and across the globe.
Hi, this is David Grice and Troy Simcock. Now, this show is pretty inspiring stuff. It's all about people that, take on the great ideas that they come up with, and they're the people that actually make them a reality, whether they know what they've got to do or not. Sometimes they've got to enroll other people in making their idea a reality, but by goodness, they get locked into being able to assist other people.
And sometimes they make it up as they go along as well, as we've discovered, which is so interesting because often we think of an entrepreneur as somebody that's very methodical, very planned, I'm going to do this and this is my steps to do it. But then, you have people that come into the world of the In Show and all they tell us about is how they're just making it up as they go along.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's been a real common thread, hasn't it? Like, you don't have to have everything worked out to be a really successful innovator or entrepreneur or, a wonderful startup.
I think the thing is the key to this is about the idea and making sure that the idea, number one, is possible to achieve, but number two, services a market that wants it. I mean, without the market that wants it, you don't have a business. So I think this is the thing, and understanding that as we're going along, ideas are ideas, but then taking those ideas and making them real is something that's, sometimes do have to make it up. I don't know an entrepreneur that's not learning every step of the way.
That's what's so exciting about the conversations we've been having on the In Show. And you can subscribe to our podcast at ozcastnetwork.com. Just hit the subscribe button and choose your preferred platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the direct RSS feed.
On the show today, we've got a couple of our favourite in-show interviews. What we thought we'd do is just go back and have a look at some of the people that we've spoken to and just pull out a couple of the ones that have really, really inspired us. And I think one of my favourites that we interviewed was when we chatted to a guy who started working in his father's building business. Then he created a landscaping company and now finds himself working as a NASA aerospace engineer. I think as a story, that's just absolutely extraordinary. So we're going to hear what Nathanael Miller had to say about his unique pathway towards the space industry.
Yeah, and I loved our conversation with Meir Moalem. Remember him from satellite and communications company Sky and Space Global? He was in Adelaide as part of the International Astronautical Conference, and he too's done work with NASA. But it was his journey from being a fighter pilot, which really inflicted a whole lot of human devastation and disrupted people's lives, to now focusing on connecting people that really was so extraordinary.
So I retired at 2011. And again, I thought, well, what can I do with what I have, with my experience? I met with Meir Moalem, one of my partners. He was just leaving the Israel aerospace industry to set up his own business, again, space-related. And we found out that we shared the same ideas and thoughts about the space industry. Afterwards, we met Yonatan Shrama, our third partner, and together we started to devise an idea of using advanced satellites, which we call nanosatellites, very small, very unique, very new technology. How can we take that technology and do some kind of viable commercial business with that? And we came to the idea of providing communication services, phone calls, instant messaging like WhatsApp, sending a text message, sending and receiving emails, stuff like that.
You'll hear more of those stories a little bit later on the In Show, but now here's Claire with more in news, including a story about how virtual reality is getting physical.
Thanks, guys. This week I'll be talking about the world's most powerful energy-producing wind turbine. But first, a group of researchers believe they've successfully created a gene map for depression that could be used to develop new treatments. Over 200 scientists from around the world have come together and mapped 44 genetic variants that increase someone's likelihood of getting depression. That number includes 30 which had never been linked to the mental disorder before. Although this might sound like a lot, the scientists have stated there's thousands more that were too small to be discovered in the study. The researchers compared datasets from the UK, US, Denmark and Iceland, detailing the genetic information of mentally healthy and mentally ill people. Many of the genetic variants that have been found are also responsible for anxiety, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and an increase in the chance of someone becoming obese. Globally, there's about 300 million people who have depression. This could be an incredible breakthrough. The first of 11 huge wind turbines have been installed near the coast of Aberdeen in Scotland. They're part of the European Offshore Wind Deployment Centre, which will soon become Scotland's largest wind farm. The project, led by Vattenfall, is partly funded by the EU and will cost about £300 million. It's hoped the wind farm will be able to produce over 70% of the town's domestic electricity needs and over 23% of its total usage amount. Each wind turbine is about 190 metres tall, which is half the height of Europe's tallest building, and just one rotation of a propeller can provide a general household with enough electricity for a whole day. The taller a wind turbine is, the more energy can be harvested as wind travels quicker at higher points. The wind farm is expected to become fully functional this year at some point between June and August. Virtual reality technology continues to advance, and this time it comes in the form of Disney's new VR Force jacket. It's hoped the jacket could be used in VR-specific theme parks as it provides users with a more lifelike experience. The Force jacket contains 26 airbags that are connected to a machine via tubes. These bags can be inflated or deflated at specific times. The aim of the jacket is to help immerse people into virtual worlds, as the pressure from the airbags can make you feel like something is pressing against you. In one of Disney's early tests, they were able to make the user feel like they were hit by a snowball. This technology could be used to create more lifelike experiences at events, concerts, art exhibitions or museums. Who knows how the landscape of entertainment will change if virtual and physical realities are combined? And that's what's in news this week.
Thanks, Claire. What do you reckon about the VR vests, David? I mean, that is just taking us to a whole nother level in terms of, the experience of, concerts and museums and all sorts of pursuits. Going to a theme park is not going to be good enough to just get on a roller coaster and, get that kick.
Well, I don't know whether you've been to, places like Movie World or Dream World where you can sit in a, what do they call it, 5D or 4D or something, where you get the experience of sitting in the seat and the seat moves, but you get wind being blown in your face, you get the visual of the screen, you get the audio that's going on. But you're absolutely right. This just takes this to an absolutely new level. I'd love to sit in a suit and just feel what it felt like.
Yeah, it's amazing, because when you think of this, I mean, my mind starts going to what on earth is next? Like, how could it be any more immersive than that? But to be able to feel the experience is something very different to being able to see something that you're experiencing, And
I think this is also about being able to safely feel the experience too, because sometimes for me it's like, well, if you want to feel the experience, just do it. Like if I want to go bungee jumping or I want to feel what it feels like to go bungee jumping, go bungee jumping.
Have you been bungee jumping?
I haven't, and I don't ever want to, ever.
Yes, I have, and I don't know what a heart attack feels like, but I definitely felt like I was on the verge. It was definitely a physical thing, but to be able to experience, imagine even that as this is what it's going to feel like for you to bungee jump. And have you then get comfortable with what that's like? Oh, it's terrifying, but it's not as bad as I thought.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? So we're going to be able to experience these things in a really safe way as opposed to actually the terrifying way. But, once again, how far will it go to be, we talk about virtual reality, well, that's going to be close to what reality really is. So
yeah, virtual reality is no longer conceptual. It's actually really creating the entire immersive experience, isn't it? I
actually really like where this could potentially go from a live concert experience point of view.
Yep.
So when you go into an arena and your favourite band's playing, the bass hits you in the chest. You feel it thumping you. Mm-hmm. So if you've got this suit on and you've got VR goggles on and you're watching your favourite band playing, you're feeling it like you're actually there, then I think that takes this to the absolute next. So what's that going to mean now then for concerts of the future? Are we going to then be, if you want to see Robbie Williams plays once only and has 2-3 million people watching him because they're in this virtual reality world. They feel like they're actually in the room because the PA is hitting him in the chest.
Yeah, that's really exciting. It makes me think of those concepts of the silent disco, where there's music played, everyone puts on headphones, and they get to dance to the channel that they're listening to. And if you were experiencing it outside of the headset, you see people dancing like mad things. Going, what's going on there? Like, what are they listening to? They looks like they're having fun. But to then think you could add the vest to that the experience is no longer just in your head, but it's in your body as well. It's expanding at such a rapid rate that, if we were to have a discussion about this in another 12 months, my mind boggles where it would actually be.
Yeah, and think about the contortions that these bodies would go in if you were watching a silent disco walking down the street with all these suits on and their bodies are jerking around because they're getting hit with different things. Could be kind of funny to watch.
The future's going to look pretty weird, that's for sure, but geez, it's going to be fun. It's David Grice and Troy Sincock talking innovation on The In Show. You can check us out at theinshow.online, Facebook, and follow The In Show on Twitter. In 90 seconds, we talk to a guy who went from repairing lawnmowers to working at NASA.
Troy, look, I'm really, really enjoying doing the In Show podcast, and I think one thing that's really occurred to me over the time we've been doing this is how popular podcasts are and how much content's out there on podcasts that I didn't know existed before.
When you start delving into podcasts, because you can get whatever content you want whenever you want it, you start finding yourself exploring all sorts of areas. But not only is there that wealth of content available, if you're a business and you need to communicate with a large group of people or people that you have that are mobile or have a reach that extends beyond just the space you're in to, internationally. For example, the In Show is listened to in how many countries now?
Oh, it's nearly 50.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we never saw that possible when we created the In Show podcast here in South Australia. You really can let people know what you're up to in all corners of the globe.
You can, and the fact is that we're here to help you.
We definitely are. So if you see value in on-demand audio or podcast for your business, really being able to tell your story and getting it out to a wider audience, we'd love to play a part in assisting you to build your story.
Yeah, all you've got to do is get in touch with us on either David at theinshow.online or Troy at theinshow.online and let us know how we can add value to your business.
Download the Phoner app before you head to your next event. Find people easier, market yourself better, and get connected using Phoner. That's spelled PFONR. Phoner. Available in the App Store now.
Hi, I'm Flavia Tatarandini from Fleet Space, and you are with Troy and David on the In Show.
In the next 10 minutes, we speak to a former fighter pilot who's changed his life and is now committed to connecting the globe. Now, here's one of our favourite in-show conversations. David caught up with Nathanael Miller, who has a background in mechatronics and aerospace engineering. In fact, since 2005, he's designed and integrated platforms for scientific instruments for NASA's Langley Research Centre.
Nathanael was actually here in Adelaide just exploring relationships and developing missions and building teams. And so basically what he was looking at was how he could collaborate with people here in South Australia to look at how that might benefit any NASA mission or anything like that was coming up in the future. I actually caught up with Nathanael in a park. Like you've always said to me, we've got to just treat our guests really well and all that sort of thing. But I had 15 minutes with Nathanael and I took it wherever I got it, and it was in the park under a flight path.
Yeah, no, you couldn't have really picked a worse scenario to be trying to capture quality audio, but for some reason you just had to strike while the iron was hot.
I did, and it was a nice day, and there was birds as well, so you get to hear all of that stuff. So I started by asking Nathanael what his day-to-day at NASA looked like.
So my day job is I work at NASA Langley Research Center, and what we've learned is that when you focus on the project, the effect of a project, you really can start shaping how people approach a problem. And so when we build teams, we start projects at the idea. We build a team around them. We send them out and figure out where the money is and what the right market is for them to go after. And then we run it out and we call it a build, fly, learn. We just build it, we fly it, and we learn what happened. And we find that when you do that and you do it for the first time, it really changes what people believe is possible.
So what got you started on that path? Like, was aerospace something that you wanted to get into as a child? I mean, most people, most boys, I've got an 8-year-old son who just dreams of being involved in aerospace or flying or wants to be a pilot for Emirates Airlines or whatever. Is this something that started for you as a boy?
Not hardly. No, I grew up building houses, and one neighbor gave me a lawnmower, and the other one asked me to cut their grass, and I told my dad I couldn't build houses with him anymore because I was making too much money mowing grass. And I made a reasonably absurd amount of money very quickly because all you do is work hard and people pay you. It's the most amazing thing. And I had a landscaping company and hiring people, and I had a pretty good number of contracts, and I realized that I liked fixing the equipment better than mowing grass or running a business. Even though I really liked mowing grass, it's something just about you do landscaping, it's a mess, and then it's not. It was really satisfying, and having money and freedom was really nice too. But solving hard problems was really cool. So souped up lawnmowers left me realizing that I needed to go to engineering school. So I quit the business. I was crazy. I went from lots of money to none as a student. That set me on a trajectory in engineering. A little while later, I went through junior college, community college in Virginia. And a little while later, I ended up at the university, and there was this guy up there, and he told us this whole story about how hard Mars was to go to. And it turned out he's the guy who figured out how to turn the Mars dirt into rocket propellant. And he had an opportunity for us to jump into. And he said, we've got 10 weeks. We've got an opportunity to fly, and we need to put something in it. What are the best ideas you have? And I changed from a kid who was running lawnmowers and fixing them and getting souped up lawnmowers to a kid who was thinking about delivering engineered platforms for scientific inquiry. And we put cancer cells in space 10 weeks later, I think, after that first meeting where I met him. And it was kind of off to the races from there. I've been a platform engineer since then.
So putting cancer cells into space, what was the purpose behind that? I mean, obviously we're looking to try and cure. Was this sort of the early stages of looking at how the cancer cells actually behave in different environments?
So my competency is a spark and a bolt. I'm a mechanical electrical engineer with a focus on controls. I wasn't at the time, and so I don't know anything about cancer. But what my researchers told us at the time, and I found out is very true still today, when you go to microgravity, everything about life changes. When we think about the building blocks of life, we think about a living cell, and you think about these Lego bricks that are all particular shapes. Those are proteins. Those proteins come from RNA, which is a transcription from DNA. And what happens is the process, so we know that the DNA is, that DNA uses the RNA and turns into Lego bricks. That's called protein crystallization. And what happens in microgravity is that the fundamentals of protein crystallization change. And so every process in the living organism changes in microgravity. So yes, cancer has been solved in different places. The future's here, just not evenly distributed. Turns out cancer is very complex, so not all the cases of cancer have been solved. And I don't really know if that had a significant contribution to it, but it definitely worked on the problem.
And so you've shared with me some pretty amazing stories of what you've experienced through your life. Is there something that you'd be happy to share, some defining moments in your life that have really changed the way you've thought about things?
Yeah, when you think about a defining moment, it's a moment with context. And the context was I was in my, I think I was in my mid-20s, and I was at the top of my career. And I had asked this really cute girl out to a date, and she was not very interested in me, and she communicated that clearly, and it kind of gave me a reality check. Less than a few months later, I worked on a experiment, a sounding rocket experiment, and it was a planetary entry, descent, and landing, and we proved it was a controllability and materials experiment. And we went from about, I think it was several thousand miles per hour to 150 miles an hour in 90 seconds falling from space. And so my job was to put the steering, I call it the steering wheel on the space brakes, and that was that's my day job. It was a little while after that we launched that, and it was a life-changing experience to sit on console and see a piece of engineering work that I had done in a NASA context. I'd done the cancer cells in sounding rockets in university, but this was in a NASA context. I sat on console, and I saw some stuff in me that I was really surprised of. I thought the whole launch was about me. And then I had a near-death incident not too long after that. There were some decisions that I made right in the thick of that moment that showed me something about who I really was and what I really wanted out of life. So kind of that trio of kind of learning who I was relationally, learning who I was career-wise, and then learning who I was fundamentally deep in my life. It left me with this burning desire to spend the rest of my days between when I know I was going to die and the very next thing happened. So yeah, that was a few years ago, and that's led to really just this push to really test the limits of belief. There's so many places where we believe things are a certain way, and testing my belief and the beliefs of others to see if they actually are true.
So this is your first time in Australia, or South Australia particularly?
When I grew up building houses. We had a good friend. He's actually is down here in Australia, John Thairsmith. He's back here in Australia now. And he convinced me that the trees down here had the leaves in the ground and the roots in the air. He said everybody walks around on their hands. And I was maybe 10 or 12 at the time. Australia's been this place of mystery and excitement since. And a lot of those myths have been dispelled. And as I have a lot of Australian colleagues, I've learned a lot to anticipate about Australia. And being here in South Australia and Adelaide, I can just say you haven't disappointed.
That's great. So as far as coming into South Australia or Adelaide for the first time, I often wonder the perception that we give as a city to visitors as they arrive. And you've obviously seen also a lot of stuff around the innovation space that's going on here. What particularly has sort of attracted your attention the most in the few days that you've been here?
Well, first off, I flew from Washington Dulles through Qatar to Adelaide, and so we're coming the wrong way around from Virginia, and I'll go back across the Pacific, and so kind of like in terms of the other side of the world, and for me, it's my first time actually wrapping the world once and ever. When I came to Australia, Philip drives me down the main drag, and I noticed there's two universities that are in really healthy tension and growing vibrantly. And Philip says, yeah, and this is our business district. This is, we do our business and we set things up here, and the investors are right down the street there. And then here's the House of Government, and here's where our different legislation elements and governance elements sit. And it just really impressed me that you could think of it at one end of the street, take it down to the other end of the street, get money for it, and start it into a business, and then put it into policy on the other side of the street. And it may seem normal for here, but for me, I work in Hampton, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. is a 3.5-hour drive. And we're considered really, really close to our seat of government. We're a little over an hour away from our state capital. And so when you think about, I'll dare to say the free world, and that when I say free world, I want to caveat that. I mean the value system that I'm me and David, I know that you're you, and we understand that if we respect that, we can do something together. Great, that's great. That ideal system is, some people call it Western civilization, some people call it all sorts of different things, but that value system has a way of deciding things in corporate and in community that requires a level of integration across knowledge, economics, and policy. And when I drove down the city of Adelaide, it was so clear that you actually have the ability here to understand the problem, turn it into an economic proposition, and drive policy that actually makes sense in a very, very tight period of time. And that was really cool to me. That's probably the biggest thing. Besides that, hearing about the art festivals and stuff like that, well, I've got to be down here in March. I'm an artist myself. I do glass and wire. I talked about the vulnerability that I talked about. You're not doing art. And I'll be generous. I don't consider it art until the media can break you. And then you become an artist when you master the media. Yeah. So I'll tell you, I've been broken and I haven't mastered it, but I'm attempting to be an artist. So I'm on this journey as an artist, and just coming down here in March and seeing the scene and all the different arts of the city. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's great. So through your career, you've obviously been working around technology and innovation and things like that. Is there anything that you're able to share with us that is probably one of the highlights of some of the work that you've done that you're most proud of?
I'm most proud of the teams I've built. When you think about technology, when I think about technology, I think about things made up of dirt. And technology is the assembly of different pieces of dirt in different ways. I think of an innovation as I put two things together in a new way, or I make a thing that already exists better. So kind of polishing the dirt. And when you get to software and computers and satellites, it gets a little bit more abstract, but at the essence of it, that's really what it is. And so when I think about technology and technology development, and you ask me what I'm most proud of, it's always for what? Why would you go build something? If I want to take a tree, cut it down, and turn it into timber and make a house, it's because I want to live. I want a different kind of life, right? That's a technology. It's taking some things that came out of the dirt and turning them into something, right? When I think about the technologies that I've worked on, and I've seen some stuff. I'm relatively early in my career compared to what's out there, and as soon as you see a lot, you realize that you haven't seen anything. And so I really haven't seen anything in some sense. And across all the stuff that I've seen in UAVs, in aviation safety, in planetary science, in microbiology, in robotics, in astrophysics, in planetary exploration, and all these different areas, the thing that really drives my heart and the thing that I'm most proud of is the teams that I've shaped that use technology to achieve a noble goal. That's really, really what I'm most proud of, and the teams that I've worked with to do that.
That was NASA aerospace engineer Nathanael Miller, one of our favourite in-show interviews. Our next guest worked at NASA too and had to speak to the families directly following the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster.
The In-Show. It's all about innovation.
Hi, I'm Martin Hazy, Lord Mayor of Adelaide, and you're listening to The In-Show.
One of my favourite in-show interviews was with Meir Moalem, a jet fighter pilot with over 20 years' experience in management, R&D, and operation of state-of-the-art projects, space systems and unmanned aerial systems. He's also the CEO and Managing Director of Sky and Space Global, a company dedicated to providing affordable communication services to anyone, anywhere, anytime, which is a stark contrast to his past, David.
I just can't believe that when we got to speak with him, that he just uncovered so much about his life and how he felt about things, which was absolutely unexpected for me. And it was just one of those moments where I actually, for the first time, saw the value of what the In-Show was all about, and that was about telling people stories.
It certainly was an incredible story. I began by asking Meir, where did your journey into the world of space begin?
Well, it started probably when I was in kindergarten, and I got my first book about space and planets and the universe. So I got interested into that as a young boy. Fortunately for me, my parents encouraged me to learn as much as I can and, go to lectures and stuff like that. But then I enlisted to the army, to the military, as is compulsory in Israel, and I found myself at the Air Force for 27 years and almost forgot about that dream. But somewhere down the road, I was fortunate enough to become the project manager for the Israeli first astronaut flight on board the shuttle Columbia. And that got me back into working on space. Later on, I was responsible for setting up as a team the Israeli Air Force Space Systems branch, and then was heavily involved in the Israeli space program. So it was a very natural step for me when I retired from the Air Force to start thinking about setting up my own company, fortunately with very good partners and friends from the space industry, Meir Pariente and Jonathan Shrama, which are our partners in Sky and Space Global.
How do you get a job like that? You've just made it sound so easy, but how do you go from being a guy involved in the Air Force to literally getting involved in space?
Oh, it's a lot of hard work, a lot of determination. But, at the end of the day, I've gained a lot of experience and know-how and expertise during my years of service. So it was, as I've said, a natural step of thinking, okay, how can I take the things that I'm enthusiastic about, that I'm happy to work on a daily basis, and I'm also quite knowledgeable in them. And from then on, it was just finding the right idea, the right partners who think the same like yourself, who have the shared vision, and trying to set up a company. It's not easy. It's not easy even if you have a very good idea and a very good team, and a very good vision, you still have to find the funding for that. And it takes time. Fortunately for us, we did it, and we did it really good so far.
So what was it like being involved with the space shuttles and the space missions? Did you actually go to space yourself?
No, unfortunately I did not. Not too late for me, but so far no, I have not. But I was fortunate enough to work with NASA on the Shuttle Columbia flight. Unfortunately, it ended a tragedy with the 7 members of the Columbia dying during re-entry. But it was a very good experience working on such a project for such a long period of time with this professional organization like NASA, with these amazing people, these astronauts, and that has taught me a lot.
What was the impact of the outcome of Columbia on the people involved in the mission?
Well, obviously, it's a personal tragedy, first of all, for the families themselves, for Rona Ramon, Ilan's wife, and the other astronauts' families as well. But it's also an organizational tragedy. I mean, it's think about multi-billion-dollar organizations with tens of thousands of employees that is focused on sending shuttles to space and suffers such a loss. So it puts a stop to the entire operation of the organization. But at the end of the day, you learn from such failures. So space is a risky business. You have to accept the fact that once in a while you'll have to pay some price.
What did you learn?
To focus on the details, to ask questions, to raise doubts, always. Never believe at first hearing on what people are telling you. Always question them. But more than that, question yourselves. Am I making the right decision? Do I have all the facts? Is there something else that I can do to improve my chances? Identify the risk, mitigate the risk.
And at what point do you stop asking those questions? I mean, when there's so much writing on things, how do you get to that end point where you're like, we're all okay here, we've mitigated as much risk as we possibly can, we feel good?
Well, probably when they put you down in the grave, not before that. This is something that it becomes a habit in your daily lives all the time. It's not only, when you're the CEO of the company, it's in everything you do. If you drive your car, did I look in the mirror in the last 30 seconds or not? Probably not. I should look again. And this is just an example. So it's a way of life. It's not that you're paranoid or you're always looking behind your back, but you're just questioning yourself all the time. Can I do better? Have I done the best I can? Is there some way to improve? Have I missed something?
You've really been surrounded by risk your entire career, haven't you, though? You're someone that really puts things on the line.
Well, I don't know. I'm not the kind of guy who goes bungee jumping or
Don't tell me you're scared of bungee jumping when you've been a jet fighter pilot.
I'm terrified of bungee jumping. It's a crazy thing to do. It's much safer to be in a jet fighter and fly and do 9Gs. It's a much safer thing to do.
Tell us about your time in the military.
It was an exciting time and a very, of course, a learning experience. But also to fly jets, it's great. It's a lot of fun. And what you do most of the time is you train, which is a lot of fun. You do air-to-air combat or whatever. But it's not all fun. I mean, after all, you are in the military and you're training towards acts of violence. And unfortunately, in Israel, although we seek peace all the time, once in a while we do have to engage in some kind of combat, and that's the not so fun part of it. It's a very dangerous business. It's a risky business, don't get me wrong. Although I feel more comfortable in an airplane than bungee jumping, it's still a risky business, and you have to be extremely professional when you're doing that. Again, always consider the risk. What would happen if I have an engine cutoff? What do I do? It's always at the back of your mind.
And at the speeds that you fly at as well.
Oh, yeah, of course.
You don't have much time to think.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us what led you into getting into the area of satellite and communications.
Yeah. So I retired at 2011. And again, I thought, well, what can I do with what I have, with my experience? I met with Meir Moalem, one of my partners. He was just leaving the Israel aerospace industry to set up his own business, again, space-related. And we found out that we share the same ideas and thoughts about the space industry. Afterwards, we met Jonathan Shrama, our third partner, and together we started to devise an idea of using advanced satellites, which we call nanosatellites, very small, very unique, very new technology. How can we take that technology and do some kind of viable commercial business with that? And we came to the idea of providing communication services. You may have heard of a company called Planet. They have satellites for remote sensing, so they basically take pictures of the Earth and sell them. We are in a totally different business, communication. Phone calls, instant messaging like WhatsApp, sending a text message, sending and receiving emails, stuff like that.
The value of this is pretty profound because there's so many areas on the planet that haven't got access to any sort of cellular or data networks or anything like that. So the satellite communications is going to be something that's going to be very, very valuable in time to come.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what we were thinking about when we started. And when we researched the market, it was unbelievable. 3 billion people without sustainable connectivity. And, we live in Western society. We're kind of used to megabits per second, high-definition movies on Facebook or YouTube or whatever. But these people cannot even send a text message. And once you can provide them with this kind of possibility and connectivity, it's a game-changing. It's a world-changing technology as far as these areas are concerned.
So where are you with your progress thus far in that field?
Well, we're quite advanced. We have launched our first 3 satellites just 3 months ago. And just so you would appreciate the timeline, we only started 18 months ago our business. So in less than 18 months, we've launched 3 satellites. We've tested them. And for the first time in history, we have demonstrated the possibility to communicate between satellites which are that small. And by that small, they're kind of a shoebox size, 30 centimeters satellite. Not only communicate between the satellite, we have demonstrated doing a phone call from a regular smartphone using a very small device that we call a hotspot to our satellites. And you can do a phone call. You can send a text message. Everything we said we would do, we actually demonstrated. Not only that, our next stage is even more challenging and mind-boggling. It's not 3 satellites, not 30. It's 200 satellites to be deployed over the equatorial region within 2 years. So it's extremely challenging, but we're already working on that at full steam.
How on earth do you get them up there?
A lot of fuel. Rockets, it's rocket science. So there are several companies in the world that provide launch services. It used to be something that only governments did, but as we all know, Elon Musk with SpaceX has broken that monopoly with his private company, and there are several other endeavors. We have a contract with Virgin Orbit, which is a company owned by the Virgin Group, and they're developing a very small, it's almost 30 meters long, but a very small missile to launch satellites such as ours to space. So we have a strategic contract with them, and they will launch some of our constellation, and we are in discussions with other launch providers as well. It's extremely costly, tens of thousands of dollars for 1 kilogram of satellite. So do the math.
Mm. And can you only launch one at a time?
Oh, no. You just fill up the missiles with as much as it can carry. So if the capacity is, let's say, 500 kilograms, and you have 5 kilogram satellites, you can put quite a lot of satellites within that.
Mm. And how heavy are yours?
The first 3 that we already have in space are 3 kilograms, but our next generation, the Constellation, will be much more capable satellites, so they will be around 8-10 kilograms in mass. But they will be extremely powerful and very capable in order to provide these kinds of services.
And when you fire the missile into space with the satellites, there's some sort of, I was going to say explosion, but clearly not. You don't want to blow up the things you've just sent into space. How does it separate and how are they distributed across, because I'm assuming what you need them to do is be spread broadly so they can sort of interconnect.
Yes, you're quite right. And that's exactly the way you do it. You put them on board the launcher, but you put them in a kind of device that enables you to deploy them sequentially. So let's say the rocket gets to the orbit and it shoots off one satellite, then it moves on, shoots off another, moves on, shoots off another. And that way you can control the distance between the satellites and put them exactly at the position that you want. And after they are there, the rocket just burns off back to the atmosphere. And then you control the satellites through their own propulsion. So you have a propulsion system on board, and then you can change, not really easily, but you can control the distance between the satellites and ensure that they are in the same formation.
And does the weight of the satellites matter when you're trying to control them in space?
No, not at all. Not at all. It matters for their moment of inertia.
Yep.
The bigger they are, the heavier they are, they have a larger moment of inertia. So if you want to turn them around, it would take a larger mass in order to do that. But other than that, mass has no significance. It's just gravity. That's what's controlling them. And gravity is the same no matter what is the mass.
So what is really motivating you here? Like I get the opportunity to commercialize this venture. That's really exciting. But it sounds to me like there's a bit of a higher calling for you, the possibility of interconnecting, of having the world connected in a way that it's not currently connected. What does that mean to you?
Well, yesterday I gave a presentation at the IAC, and I started with the company vision. And I've said to the audience, it's not enough to have a very good idea or extremely good technology or even an exceptional team or even the funding. That's not good enough. You have to have some kind of a shared vision in the company in order to push things forward. So our vision is to provide affordable communication services to anyone, anywhere, anytime, including those people that we've just talked about that have been denied so far of this basic human right. And by doing that, what we believe will happen is not only we will change their personal day-to-day lives, we will change the entire infrastructure in the places they live in. Because there's a lot of talk, I don't know how much you're familiar with the term ICT, communication, information, and technology revolution that is going on. And ICT, what it causes, it improves the lives of everyone, because we're using technology every day, we're using information every day. We just we don't even know that we're using it. So if we provide better communication to these areas, we provide actually better education, because schools will have connectivity. They could get some data. We provide better healthcare, because you could call a doctor remotely and he could diagnose you and give you a medical treatment. We provide better financial systems, again, because you can transfer funds over your phone through financial applications on the phone. You provide better governance, because the government knows what goes on. Was there a flood? Was there an earthquake? Are there fires? Are there some kind of gangs going around and robbing people? So everything improves once you get connectivity. And we believe that's a good call, changing the world for the good, even in minute scale measures.
It's awesome to hear people with such strong vision, and it's I read a quote very recently that those that are crazy enough to think they can change the world are usually those that can. And for me, it was like listening to what you're saying about that purpose and that vision is really, really powerful. Just putting communications aside for a sec, what do you think from a technology point of view is coming that we should be aware of?
First of all, it's very, very difficult to answer that question. And I'm just thinking, what I imagined 20 years ago and what I've imagined 10 years ago and 5 years ago, and the rate that technology improves always surprises me. Always. It moves so fast. So it's very difficult to really know. Think about the smartphones that we have today. Who would have thought when it first came out that the last thing that you would do is use them as a phone to call each other? We're doing everything else other than calling each other, right?
That's true.
So it's very difficult to know. But if we put space technology aside for a moment, I believe blockchain is a very big thing. Not the cryptocurrency, not Bitcoin or Ethereum or that. I mean the blockchain itself, the ability to have unhackable ledgers which are independent of other systems is something very big that we're not sure exactly how to use or how to implement, but that will come within a few years. Miniaturization. Other thing I think that will improve lives, as we talked before, is biomed initiatives, new kinds of drugs and medicines which are based on biological research. Again, saving people from cancer, or saving people from other diseases. That's a really important cause, and I think it would change the world. Just imagine if, for some reason, no more lung cancer. Mm-hmm. What would it do to the world?
Mm-hmm. Meir, what would you say? Obviously, it was really great hearing you still being childlike in your curiosity and your enthusiasm for all these things even now. There's plenty of people that have wonderful ideas that, maybe think that they don't have the skills to execute them, or perhaps they don't have the resources, around them, or they just think it's a crazy idea. No one's going to, take this on board. What would you say to those people? Do you have a word of advice for someone with a crazy idea?
I think I have. We all have crazy ideas. Most of us, like you say, just think to ourselves, well, yeah, it's a crazy idea. It's nice that I've had it, and you move on with your lives. Some of us think, okay, it's a good idea. Maybe I'll try to do something out of it. And out of these people, very few actually succeed. And I think the main reason for failures out of the people who actually try to pursue their dream is understanding your own limitations. Just the fact that you had the best idea in the world for a new technology, that doesn't mean that you know how to build a business model, you know how to run a company, or you know how to talk to investors, or you know how to even handle human resources within your business. So one of the most important things is to understand that you do not know everything. You have a great idea, great. Find the partners who will help you realize this dream. Now, fortunately for me, and I've mentioned my two partners, the three of us complement each other. So each of us has his own strengths and weaknesses, and we are very much aware of what we can and cannot do, and we rely on the other two to help them when they need this kind of this kind of help. One of the very common mistakes entrepreneurs do is they never give up on controlling their business. And they might be the world's best engineers, but the world's lousiest businessmen. So you need to really understand that. The second thing is, we always say pursue your dream. Make sure your dream is something which has some foundation in reality. Ask yourself hard questions. And this is also common when you ask an entrepreneur hard questions on his idea. They think, they're just trying to down-ramp me. They don't want me to succeed. But that's not the case. You should ask yourself the hardest questions to make sure that your idea is viable and is real. And if you do that, all good.
Fantastic. Meir Moalem, thank you so much for joining us. It's been wonderful to speak to you, and I think you've given every little boy that ever dreamed about space great inspiration for their futures. Thanks so much for joining us on The In Show.
Thank you very much, Troy and David. It's been great to be here. I had a lot of fun.
That was CEO and Managing Director of Sky and Space Global, Meir Moalem, another of our favourite in-show interviews.
There's much more from the world of innovation on the In-Show podcast, so subscribe at the AuscastNetwork.com, hit the subscribe button and choose your preferred platform. It could be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the RSS feed if you like, so make sure you rate us 5 stars if you like what we're doing.
And you can check us out at theinshow.online, share an innovation you're working on, and follow us on Facebook and Twitter as well.
Now, before we go, here's Susan Rooney-Harding from Storycatchers with some inspiring words about turning your passion into a career.
Well, you have to be really driven, because in the beginning it's hard, Yaka. You doubt yourself, and I always say turn the demons into diamonds, find those demons, because those things that are really, really hard, do them first, because those are the things that will turn into the diamond in the end. And so it's sort of like just to have that underlying knowledge that this is it, for me, that has been my driving force. This is it. I tell my kids, this is it, guys. You got one life. Go and do it.
The In Show, presented by David Grice and Troy Sincock. News by Shannon Corvo and Claire Murphy. Music by Zach Grice. Produced by Jason Walker. To hear more of The In Show, subscribe to In Show on Apple Podcasts or find us at AuscastNetwork.com. A Dave and the Beanstalk production.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.